Well, James, in the outro to the break, you gave Chelsea the big build-up and called them world champions, which is obviously a fact, believe it or not. World champions, possibly Premier League champions, or is that too much of a stretch?
Well, I mean, we've just maybe they're favourites. They're the best team in the world right now. Yeah, look, I mean, we can sort of slightly mock that competition, and I know that we've done all of that in previous podcasts about the Club World Cup and the merits of it. But it is a real shot in the arm for Chelsea financially. Again, cynically, yes, but also in terms of I think Enzo Maresca's position at the club. It seems silly to sort of say this about a manager who's delivered 2 trophies, but particularly after and Champions League qualification. But even though they finished the season successfully by their standards and by their expectations, there were still murmurings about whether Maresca was the right man and whether the style of football was good enough and whether he fully had everybody on board and could really take Chelsea back to the top of the game where they expect to be. So the fact that they navigated, the Club World Cup to win it and came through some difficult challenges, and I was at that farcical game against Benfica that was 5 minutes from finishing and then was suddenly 2 hours from finishing because of the thunderstorm delay, and they came back and they conceded a penalty and they nearly went out and then they won it in extra time. And those kind of experiences will really galvanise this group. But I think internally they don't feel as though the title is within their grasp next season. I don't think he's under pressure internally to try and deliver that this year. I think what they expect is a run at it, maybe certainly top 4, and a run at it that's a little bit more sustained than last season. If you remember around Christmas time, there were people talking about whether Chelsea were in the title race before they sort of fell away. And Maresca himself was kind of saying, no, definitely not. Definitely not. Just watch and wait, and played it down quite cleverly, I thought. They'll need to show a little bit more ability to stay with the pace setters this time, I think, into sort of spring and ideally beyond. Obviously, if they're in it at that stage, then they could win the league. But I don't think they're in a position where they have to win it this year. It's Champions League qualification. It's probably deliver another trophy because that's what Chelsea fans are used to under the Roman Abramovich era, and now they've got a taste for it under Bowley and Clearlake. But I don't think anybody associated with Chelsea expects them to win the title this season.
What have you made of Chelsea's summer transfer business? Because obviously, I mean, again, you'll know better than me. From the outside last season, it seemed like they were screaming out for a proper number 9. I know Nicholas Jackson has his fans at Stamford Bridge and other people who are kind of not so keen. Obviously, they've signed Delap. They've got João Pedro from Brighton. Does that solve that issue? Are there other issues in the squad that you think haven't been solved? What have you made of the summer business so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been very good. They did need, it's obvious that they need to upgrade in the centre forward position. I think Maresca's had to sort of strike a difficult balancing act there, because on the one hand, he talks Jackson up. When Jackson was injured, he sort of said, look, this is what we're missing. We don't miss not just his goals. And I know people question that goal record, but he's got a reasonable return, but also his work without the ball, the way he sets the press from the front. Chelsea didn't really have anyone else who could do that. They tried a couple of other options there. They played Pedro Neto through the middle. They tried Cole Palmer there. They tried Tariq George, lad from the academy there. Nobody really convinced in that role. And now they've got 2 options alongside Jackson. I think Jackson will probably go before the end of the window, because I think it's difficult for him to have to take that he's at best second choice and probably third choice now for that one centre forward position. And I think João Pedro will start the season leading the line. And it's interesting that, we can talk about the physical aspects of playing in the Club World Cup and the negative impact that could have. And I really think that is going to be an issue for Chelsea next season. They were playing competitive games in 30 plus degree heat into the middle of July. To ask them a month later to start the Premier League season hitting the ground running is very, very difficult. And also, of course, they rested their entire 11 essentially in the Conference League group stage last season. They won't be able to do that this time with the Champions League. So they're going to have games Saturday, Wednesday, Sunday, Tuesday, Saturday. That sort of schedule. They're going to have that now for many, many months. with this squad that won't be able to be rotated as heavily because they're going to want to compete in those competitions. And that is going to be an issue. The flip side, of course, is that João Pedro has played competitive football for Chelsea, already. And we're not even in the start of the Premier League season. They've got other signings that they've had through the door. Mamadou Sarr. They've got players that they've got in there who are up and running, if you like, as Chelsea players, and that will help them next season or this season. I keep saying next season. Is it this season or next season? It's this season.
Never stops.
That will help them, of course, but it's difficult to get away from that physical aspect. I think they're a young squad that they've not got many miles in their legs, I suppose, but. It was. I mean, you and I were both out there. That was a slog of a tournament. That, particularly, obviously for Chelsea, who went all the way in it, and to sort of expect that will have no effect on them whatsoever going into next season is I think you're a bit naive to sort of assume that it may not hit them straight away. It may be sort of, October, November, December time, Christmas time when the games are thick and fast. It might be that it hits them further down the line, but you sort of suspect that it will hit them at some point.
And obviously, we've still got a couple of weeks left of the transfer window. Are you expecting any more? Garnacho, possibly Xavi Simons, names that have been mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, they're interested in both. They're serious about both. I think they'll probably get both. If I'm honest, if I'm sat here now and I had to predict. I mean, Garnacho's an interesting one, isn't he? I mean, obviously you'll have a view on this one in particular as well. A player who has a lot of talent, question marks about his mentality. From what I'm told, again, about Chelsea's analytics, the data they feel on Garnacho is really, really good. They feel that there's a lot more to come from him. A lot of their signings are not necessarily data-led, but certainly heavily influenced by the data. They have obviously the profile of players. They're trying to pick younger players who have the potential to improve and grow together and put them on a 36-year contract and, incentivize them that way. But I don't know. What do you think? Do you think there's a little bit of a question mark about Garnacho at the highest level? Do you think he will get there, or are United right maybe to have their doubts about him from a sort of personality perspective?
My personal view is I think there's a player in there. And I know that an awful lot of people who watch United just as much as me say completely different, say that he's just not at the standard of, to perform at the top level. I think it's been tough for him he got fast-tracked into the first team at a time when United was struggling. And I think he struggled with that adaptation between what was expected of academy players and then first team players in terms of attitude and desire and intensity of training, and found that step up quite tough. That said, there's plenty of instances where Erik ten Hag was quite positive about him. Even second half of last season, Ruben Amorim was very positive about him, kind of praised him for adapting to a new way of playing, a new system. It seemed like that relationship was kind of on the right track, and towards the end of last season, obviously, it just completely disintegrated and ended with Garnacho criticising Amorim after the Europa League final. He went through a spell. I mean, he's had a spell at United where he was clearly Man United's best attacking player. Now, I accept that probably doesn't say very much. And he can certainly work an awful lot harder on his finishing and his goal return, and his numbers in terms of goals and assists should be a lot higher. But the way that he takes the ball, he dribbles past players. He's not afraid of carrying the ball long distances. I'm certainly not suggesting that he could go on to be one of the best in the world, but there is a possibility that he could end up going to Chelsea, and United in 2 or 3 years may regret letting him go, because I think he has got quite a high ceiling. It's whether Chelsea can get the best out of him. I mean, you'll obviously know better than me about whether Chelsea's a place for him to do that, but I do think that maybe United will come to regret letting him go in the future.
I mean, he's also, if he does come in, he's going to have a lot of competition for places. I mean, we should sort of make the point, I think, that, I think Maresca managed the squad very well last season, but he was able to sort of almost split it into 2 tiers because of the Conference League that, they were in it. They shouldn't have been in it. They're too big a club to be in it, really. They were able, with all due respect to the teams they played, they were able to heavily rotate and not really risk going out until the very end of the tournament. They're not going to be able to do that in the Champions League. So it won't be a case of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 changes per game when they play in Europe. And so, if Garnacho comes in, he's going to find himself competing against some players. We should mention Estêvão, because of course he's somebody who has got everybody very excited at Cobham. I was speaking to somebody up there the other day, actually, was saying that what they've seen from him already has almost exceeded expectations. Just behind the scenes, they're really, really excited about what they feel they're going to get from him. I mean, I remember talking to a couple of the players before they played Palmeiras that they were already excited about what they'd seen from him in the competition. And then we saw there were some quotes after the game where they, I think Cole Palmer was sort of saying, can't wait to see you at Chelsea. And he sort of said, obviously he didn't understand the word I was saying. So there's a bit of a language barrier they're going to have to overcome there. Typical Cole Palmer stuff. Endearing as ever. But he's where's he going to play? He can play off both wings. He can play as a number 10. He's somebody who's going to need to be integrated. There's a lot of unpredictability about Chelsea, and that I think has been a criticism of Maresca, that they are a bit too static. They're a bit too formulaic, maybe in the way that they play. They want to see the team have a bit more dynamism about them this year. And obviously, if Garnacho came in as well, they've got a number of players. Gittins is another one we should mention. They've got these players who can make them unpredictable from week to week, and that that will make them dangerous.
Just to round off the Chelsea chat, then, just in terms of, obviously they are going to come into the Premier League season as world champions. They have got 2 trophies under the belt. Maresca's been there for a year. They've done what seems like decent business in the summer. Are you putting them in the bracket of clubs with Liverpool, Arsenal and City who will have genuine ambitions to win the Premier League, or are they still in that kind of group below that in your mind?
I think they're leading the group below it. So I think in my side predictions, I've put them 4th, and I because I just think they're going to be a little bit short of let's say the big 3, if you like, Arsenal, Liverpool, and City. I feel as though those 3 are just a little bit further ahead. I don't think the gap's very big at all. Like, you could easily see them getting into that mix for a while, but I just don't see it over a 38-game season. You feel it's a year too early for them. You feel like if they continue to progress this year, then I think next season will be a little bit more settled again. I think that squad, if Maresca has another good year, he'll obviously have another year under his belt, a bit more authority, a bit more of a command and an understanding of what he's trying to do. And I think 26, 27 would be the year that they would really want to go for it. Rather than this season. I think if they're top 4, they're safely in the Champions League spaces and they're in the mix for a while, I think that would be considered a successful season in the Premier League for Chelsea.